Had to rotate there the piece of paper. This would be a new chapter, chapter 10. I already made a mistake there with the chapter. And we're going to look at two new market structures in this chapter. And so far we looked at two extremes. The most competitive market is perfect competition, and the least competitive is monopoly. And now we're going to look at two market structures in the middle. And the first one we're going to look at is monopolistic competition. This is a very competitive market, but each firm in this market has a little bit of market power, a little bit of monopoly power. And remember, that's the power to control the price. So the market structure, first of all, is a large number of buyers and sellers, with each supplier providing a small share of the market. So everyone in this market is pretty small. No one really dominates the market, but they're all selling something that's similar. Much competition with no market domination market dominance by any seller. And because there's so many competitors, it's difficult to collude with other sellers. Collude is when you act together as more like trying to act like a monopoly, fixing prices, things like that. Now, the key about this market that's different than perfect competition is we have what's known as product differentiation. This is where each seller can differentiate their product from their competitors' products, and so consumers can tell the difference. This allows for each firm to have a little bit of power over the price because you're the only one that sells this particular brand, for example. Branding is one way to, again, create product differentiation away from your competitors. Under perfect competition, advertising is useless, but not under this market. Under monopolistic competition, advertising is very, very useful, very critical. This means that each firm, again, has some monopoly power to control the price. So you can set your price somewhat. Again, you can't go too far away from the competition or else you lose a lot of your customers. So you have to be worried about how far your price is away from your competitors. It's also pretty easy to get in these markets. It may not be no barriers, but low barriers, so it doesn't cost you that much to get in and out. And again, that helps make the markets be more competitive. And again, most of the markets made up of brand names, consumer products would be examples like laundry detergents, breakfast cereals, gasoline brands, fast food, restaurants, candy, toothpaste. Most things you would buy at a department store or a store like Target would tend to fit into this category here. So again, low barriers allows for the easy entry exit, makes it competitive. And again, most of the markets that have brand names would fall under these categories here, under this category here. Now, what's the behavior of these firms? Well, they act like a little monopoly. They don't have complete discretion, but they have little discretion. They have some discretion. And they work the same way. They want to maximize their profits by setting marginal cost equal to marginal revenue. And then they set the price off the demand, which is their share of the market. That comes from the consumers again. They're the ones that determine how much they're going to buy at each price. But each firm knows somewhat what their market is, and they know what happens if they raise the price or lower the price. In essence, they have a good idea of what their price elasticity of demand is. So this is our downward sloping demand with margin revenue that we saw in the chapter on monopoly. And that's your share of the market. So if you want to advertise, you might be able to increase your demand, move it out. You also want to make it steeper if you can, because again, that makes it more inelastic. Remember, the more inelastic the demand is, the more control you have over the price. You would lose less customers if you raise your price. And that means that you have created some kind of a image of your product that is better than the competitors. So a good example I would say is Tide detergent. I think Tide detergent has a reputation as being the best laundry detergent there is, which is why they have a higher price than their competitors, and they have a bigger share of the market. Now what I did here is I just put in a average total cost curve and a marginal cost curve, and this works the same way as a monopoly. We go to the profit maximizing output, which is marginal cost equals margin revenue right there. Drop a line straight down. And that is the profit maximizing output. Call it Q1. And they price off demand, so we go up to the demand. and that's the price they're going to charge. View 1. And then we can just see if we have any profits, and we take the output, go to average total cost, which is right there. That is average total cost, making the profit maximizing output. Yeah, a couple colored pencils. So all this is their total revenue. Price times quantity. This down here is their cost. That is the average total cost times output. And this part up here is their profit. That's total revenue minus total cost. You can also take this area right here, which is your markup, and times that amount by your output Q1. Now the difference between this firm and a monopoly is that if this were a monopoly, those profits would stay. If it's in monopolistic competition, those profits are going to be under threat from new competitors, as well as your current competitors. So in the short run, a firm in this market can earn positive profits, and that will attract entry into the market. So the firm we just saw will attract entry into the market. As more firms come to the market to compete with your profits, and the reason why they can do this is because we cannot stop them. Barriers are non-existent or they're low. And so that's going to take a bit of the market share away from the current firms. So if we have like Tide detergents make a large profit, then new firms will come in, develop their own line of laundry detergents, market them, advertise them, and compete with you, and they would take a share of your market away. So that means less market share for each firm, which means each firm's demand line will shift inward to the left. And also because there's more choice for consumers, as we saw in Chapter 5, the more choice consumers have, the more elastic demand becomes. And so your demand is not just shifting inward, but it's also becoming more elastic as new competition comes in. So here's an example. This was the demand we had before there was competition coming in, and that was our margin of revenue. And now when competition comes in, our market share shrinks. And so again, this demand is our share of the market, and as new firms come in, that demand line shifts inward to the left, and you also can see it becomes a bit flatter. So that's what happens to your profits in the long run in monopolistic competition. New firms come in, they take a market share away from everyone, and everyone's demand becomes flatter. Now, what economists believe is that in the long run, after all these firms have come in and demand has shifted, it'll eventually stop at a point where it just touches the average total cost curve, and that leaves each firm with no more profit. So you can see right here, using the new demand and margin of revenue, so here's our new margin of revenue, there's our marginal cost, that's the profit maximizing output right here, Q1. And then this is the price we're going to charge off the new demand. Say $18. And so that's our price. But that's also right where the average total cost curve is, right there. So then this area here is both our total revenue and our total cost, and then profit's going to be zero. So in these kind of markets that are very competitive, even though you have price making power, the competition is going to keep your profits under control. Economists would say they're going to be normal profits for everyone. That's not entirely true because each firm's going to have a little bit different demand. And so, for example, Tide detergent might be able to keep a little bit higher demand and therefore be able to keep a little bit higher profit than, say, the other brands of detergent. So it's not true that every firm would have normal profit, but the profits would be kept pretty much under control by all this competition coming in. And I guess I'll stop there and come back for part 2.